The last thing I remember before the darkness took me was James Bennett's face, wearing an expression I'd never seen before. Was it concern? Fear? Or something else entirely? I couldn't tell because my vision was already blurring, my legs giving out as I collapsed in our company's parking garage. I'm Diana Mitchell, co-founder of Artemis Biotech, and that moment in the parking garage was the last time I would see my business partner and trusted friend for 3 months. 3 months during which he would try to steal everything we built together. The day had started normally enough. James and I were preparing for a crucial board meeting about our breakthrough cancer treatment delivery system. 5 years of research, countless sleepless nights, and our entire life savings had gone into developing this technology. We were weeks away from final FDA approval. The Morgan Group is getting nervous, James had said during our morning coffee ritual. They think the approval process is taking too long. They knew the timeline when they invested, I replied, reviewing our presentation materials. Besides, the preliminary results are exceeding expectations. James had nodded, but something in his expression should have warned me. I'd known him since our days at Stanford Medical School. He was brilliant but always impatient, always looking for shortcuts. What if we explored other options? He suggested. Maybe sell to one of the major pharmaceuticals before approval, and let them control the distribution. I shook my head. You know, that's not why we started this company. We want this treatment to be accessible, not locked behind corporate profits. He'd gone quiet then, that familiar crease between his eyebrows that appeared when he was plotting something. But I was too focused on our upcoming presentation to notice. The headache started around noon. By 2, my vision was blurring. By 4, as I walked to my car to get my backup presentation materials, everything went black. I woke up 3 months later in the intensive care unit at Seattle General. A rare brain aneurysm, they told me. I'd been in a coma for 12 weeks. But as I lay there, trying to piece together what had happened, something felt wrong. Your business partner visited a few times, the nurse mentioned casually. In the beginning, said you've been under a lot of stress with the company. I tried to reach for my phone, but my muscles were too weak from months of inactivity. Can you look up Artemis Biotech for me? Please? The nurse pulled out her phone, and I watched her face change as she read. Oh, it says here the company was acquired by Bennett Pharmaceuticals 3 months ago. The founder, James Bennett, consolidated ownership after his partner, after you apparently resigned due to health concerns. The monitors tracking my heart rate spiked. Resigned? Consolidated ownership? My mind raced back to our last conversation, to the thumb drive I always wore on a chain around my neck. The one that contained recordings of all our major meetings, a habit I developed after losing crucial notes years ago. My necklace, I croaked. From my personal effects. Please. The nurse found it in the hospital safe, along with my other belongings. With shaking hands, I clutched the small drive. James didn't know about this. He couldn't know that I recorded everything, including our last conversation of selling the company. But I was too weak to do anything about it yet. The doctors said I needed at least 2 more weeks of recovery before they'd release me. 2 weeks during which I had to pretend to be more incapacitated than I was, because I knew James would be watching. I was right. He visited the next day, all concerned smiles and gentle condolences. Diana, thank God you're awake, he said, sitting beside my bed. We were all so worried. I feigned greater weakness than I felt, keeping my eyes half closed. The company, what happened? Don't worry about that now, he soothed. Focus on getting better. I had to make some hard decisions while you were unavailable. But it was all for the best. Through my half-closed eyes, I saw that expression again, the one from the parking garage. Now I recognized it, calculation. The treatment, I whispered, is being developed on schedule, he assured me. Under proper corporate oversight now, Bennett Pharmaceuticals has the resources to bring it to market efficiently. Translation. They would control the pricing, the distribution, everything we have fought to prevent. You should rest, he said, standing. I'll have the lawyers send over some paperwork for you to sign once you're stronger. Just finalizing the transfer of your shares, making everything official. I let my eyes close fully, listening to his footsteps retreat. In my hand, hidden under the blanket, I clutched the thumb drive containing his true intentions. That night, using the nurse's phone, I sent a text to Maria Santos, my old friend from law school. Need help. Hospital. Come alone. Tell no one. Maria arrived the next morning, her lawyer face on until she saw me. Then she burst into tears. "My God, Diana, we thought you were dying," James told everyone. "I bet he did," I said grimly. "Listen carefully. I need you to do something for me, and no one can know, especially not James." I handed her the thumb drive and whispered my instructions. Her eyes widened as she listened. "He really didn't know you record everything?" she asked. "A habit he used to tease me about," I smiled weakly. "Called me paranoid for keeping such detailed records." "How long have you been doing this?" "Since the day we founded Artemis. Every major meeting, every significant conversation, including the one where he explicitly agreed never to sell or transfer ownership without mutual consent." Maria's legal mind was already working. The transfer would be invalid. He had no authority. "But he did it anyway," I said. "Used my medical crisis to steal everything. And now he's going to learn why you should never betray someone who keeps receipts." Over the next week, I focused on recovery while Maria quietly gathered intelligence. James had moved fast during my coma, using his family name and connections to push through the ownership transfer. He told our investors I had resigned for health reasons, that I'd agreed to sell my shares before my collapse. But he'd made one crucial mistake. In his rush to seize control, he'd violated dozens of clauses in our operating agreement, all of which I had documented evidence to prove. "The board is meeting next Thursday," Maria reported during one of her visits. "Final approval of the acquisition structure. James is consolidating his power base." "Perfect. That gives us a week to prepare my return." "Diana," Maria hesitated. "Are you sure you're strong enough?" I pushed myself up in the bed, muscles screaming but determination burning. I didn't spend 5 years of my life developing a treatment to help people just to watch him turn it into another profit machine. "I'm not just going to return, I'm going to take everything back." She nodded, understanding the look in my eyes. "I'll set everything in motion. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "When you walk into that boardroom, make sure I'm there to see his face." I smiled, feeling stronger by the minute. "Oh, don't worry. Everyone's going to want to see his face when he realizes what I've got on that thumb drive." James had no idea what was coming. He thought he'd stolen my company while I was fighting for my life. He was about to learn that some battles don't end just because one side is temporarily down. I spent the next few days preparing for war, disguising my recovery progress from the nurses I couldn't trust. Knowing James probably had people watching, every moment of weakness had to look real, every setback convincing. Because next Thursday, I wasn't going to walk into that boardroom as a victim. I was going to walk in as an avenging angel armed with irrefutable proof of his betrayal. And James Bennett was about to learn why you should never underestimate a partner who keeps records of everything, especially one you've left for dead. 3 days before the board meeting, I checked myself out of the hospital against medical advice. The doctors protested, but I had more important medicine to administer, the kind that cures betrayal. Maria had secured a suite at the Four Seasons under her law firm's name. James's people would be watching my house, expecting me to still be in the hospital. We needed complete privacy for what was coming next. The thumb drive contained even more than we hoped, Maria said, spreading documents across the hotel room's desk. "Not just the conversation about never selling, but evidence of his preparations before your accident." I leaned forward, muscles still protesting but mind sharp. "What kind of preparations?" She pulled up an audio file on her laptop. James's voice filled the room, speaking to someone 2 weeks before my collapse. "The FDA approval is taking too long. Diana won't budge on selling, but there might be another way. I've already talked to my father's pharmaceutical company." I felt ice in my veins. "The date on this?" 2 weeks before your aneurysm," Maria confirmed. "And there's more. We found emails to a doctor at Seattle General asking about the statistical likelihood of aneurysms in people your age, particularly under stress." The implications made my hands shake. He didn't just take advantage of my condition. He was counting on it. "We can't prove he caused your aneurysm," Maria cautioned. "But we can prove he was planning this takeover before you got sick. That alone violates at least 15 clauses in your partnership agreement." My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Wong, our former head of research who had quit the day after James announced the acquisition. "Boss, please tell me you're really alive and fighting back. The new protocols they're implementing. They're changing everything we built. I responded quickly. Very much alive. How would you like your old job back? Her reply was instant. When and where? I've got dozens of emails documenting the changes they're making to the treatment protocols. They're going to price it out of reach for most patients. Exactly what we had fought to prevent. I forwarded her message to Maria. Another witness. Maria nodded. But we need more. The board members who approved the transfer. They were lied to. I finished. And I bet James didn't keep very good records of those lies. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Maria checked the security camera we'd installed. It was Michael Chen, our former CFO, looking nervous. I heard rumors, he said when we let him in. That you were awake, that something big was coming. He looked at me. I saved copies of everything, Diana. All the financial records from before he pushed me out. I smiled. Tell me, Michael, did James follow proper procedures when he transferred the company assets? Michael's answering grin was vicious. Not even close. I've got proof of at least 3 major violations of SEC regulations. Been keeping them safe, waiting for this moment. The pieces were falling into place. Over the next 2 days, more former employees reached out. Each had saved evidence, each had witnessed James's betrayal, and each was eager to help take him down. But our biggest ally came from an unexpected source. Ms. Mitchell. The voice on the phone was elderly, dignified. This is Margaret Bennett, James's mother. I sat up straighter. Margaret Bennett was a legend in biotech circles, though she'd retired years ago. I've been watching what my son did to you, she continued. It's despicable. His father and I taught him better than this. A pause. I have documents you might find interesting. Board meeting minutes that contradict James's version of events. Why help me? I had to ask. Because I believe in what you and James originally set out to do, she replied. Making treatments accessible, not just profitable. He's lost his way. Perhaps it's time for a reminder of what matters. The morning before the board meeting, I stood in front of the mirror in my hotel suite, practicing standing without showing weakness. My body was still recovering, but I couldn't let them see that. Maria burst in, waving her phone. You need to see this. James just sent a press release to the major news outlets. He's announcing Bennett Pharmaceuticals' complete acquisition of Artemis Biotech, claiming you've signed off on everything. Perfect, I smiled. He's just made this much easier. How? Because announcing an acquisition based on fraudulent documents, that's not just a contract violation, that's securities fraud. We spent the final hours preparing everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence carefully organized. The thumb drive's contents backed up in multiple secure locations. At 6 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from James himself. Heard you checked out of the hospital. Hope you're feeling better. The paperwork for your share transfer is ready whenever you're up for it. I showed Maria the message. Should I respond? She grinned. No need. He'll be seeing you soon enough. That night, I could barely sleep, my mind racing with what was to come. I remembered all the late nights James and I had spent in the lab, dreaming of how our treatment would help people. How had he gone from that idealistic researcher to someone who would betray everything we built? At dawn, I received another unexpected call, this time from Robert Morgan of the Morgan Group, our biggest investor. Just wanted you to know, he said without preamble, we never believed you'd voluntarily walk away. We've been waiting, watching. Tomorrow's board meeting should be interesting. I smiled. You have no idea. Maria arrived early, carrying a garment bag. If we're going to war, we're doing it in style. Inside was a perfectly tailored black suit that made me look less like a recovering patient and more like an avenging CEO. My phone kept buzzing with messages from other employees, investors, even competitors who had heard rumors of my return. Each one added another piece to the puzzle of James's betrayal, another witness to his lies. At 8 a.m., Maria's associate confirmed that James had arrived at the office, looking confident and relaxed as he prepared for what he thought would be a routine board meeting. He just sent out the agenda, the associate reported. First item: finalizing the acquisition and your removal from all corporate documents. I checked my appearance one final time. The woman in the mirror looked powerful, unstoppable. No trace of the hospital patient remained. Ready? Maria asked, holding up the thumb drive that would destroy James's carefully constructed house of lies. I took it, feeling its weight, not just physical, but moral. This small piece of technology contained not just recordings, but the truth about betrayal, about corruption, about the difference between power and right. "The car's waiting," Maria said. "Everyone's in position." I nodded, thinking of James sitting in that boardroom, probably rehearsing how he would announce my official removal from the company we had built together. He had no idea what was coming. "Let's go," I said, stepping toward the door. "It's time to remind James why you should never betray someone who keeps receipts." The drive to Artemis Biotech's headquarters felt surreal. Every familiar landmark brought back memories of building this company, of the dreams we'd had, of the trust James had shattered. But I wasn't going there to reminisce. I was going there to take back what was mine. The elevator ride to the 12th floor of Artemis Biotech felt like ascending to destiny. Standing beside me, Maria clutched her briefcase containing enough evidence to destroy James's carefully constructed lies. Behind us, Sarah Wong and Michael Chen waited silently, each carrying their own documented proof of James's betrayal. "He's just started the meeting," Maria's associate texted, announcing the final phase of the acquisition. Perfect timing. The boardroom doors were closed, but through the glass walls I could see James standing at the head of the table, gesturing confidently as he presented his version of events. The board members sat around the massive oak table, some nodding, others looking uncertain. "Ready?" Maria whispered. I straightened my jacket, feeling the thumb drive hanging from its chain around my neck. "Oh yes." I pushed open the doors. The reaction was immediate. James's voice cut off mid-sentence. His face, previously animated with fake sincerity, froze in an expression I'll never forget. Pure, unadulterated shock melting into fear. "Deanna," he stammered, "you're supposed to be in a coma? Dead, or just conveniently absent while you steal my company?" My voice carried clearly across the suddenly silent room. "Sorry to disappoint, James." Board members half rose from their chairs. Robert Morgan, our lead investor, actually smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen," I continued, walking steadily to the center of the room, "I believe there are some details about this acquisition that James forgot to mention. This meeting is private." James tried to recover. "You're no longer." Actually, Maria stepped forward. "Ms. Mitchell very much is still an owner of this company. The documents claiming otherwise were fraudulently filed." "Ridiculous," James scoffed, but his face had gone pale. "We have her resignation, her transfer of shares." "Forged," I cut him off, while I was unconscious. "But then that was the plan all along, wasn't it?" I nodded to Michael, who began distributing packets to each board member. "These are the real financial records, showing unauthorized transfers and multiple violations of SEC regulations. And these," Sarah added, passing out her own documents, "show the changes made to our treatment protocols. Changes that would make the therapy unaffordable for most patients, violating our core mission and FDA approval parameters." James's face had gone from pale to ashen. "The board approved." "The board was lied to," I interrupted again. "You told them I had agreed to sell before my medical emergency. But I have proof that's not true." I unclasped the necklace and held up the thumb drive. "Would you like to hear our last conversation, James? The one where you suggested selling to your father's company and I explicitly refused. Or should we skip to the part where you discussed my convenient medical crisis before it happened?" His eyes fixed on the thumb drive with horror. You recorded." "Everything," I finished. "Every meeting, every conversation. A habit you used to mock, remember? Called me paranoid for documenting everything." The board members were flipping through the packets, murmuring among themselves. Robert Morgan looked up sharply at James. "Is this true?" he demanded. "Did you orchestrate this takeover knowing Ms. Mitchell had refused?" I was protecting the company's interests," James tried. "The delays in FDA approval were normal and expected." I cut in. "As you well knew, what wasn't normal was you contacting doctors about aneurysm statistics weeks before I collapsed." That revelation sent a shockwave through the room. James actually staggered back. "You have no proof." I nodded to Maria, who opened her laptop. James' own voice filled the room. "Yes, doctor, I'm particularly interested in stress-induced aneurysms. Someone about 40, female under extreme work pressure. The recording cut off into dead silence. Would you like to hear the rest? I asked quietly, or should we move on to the evidence of securities fraud from this morning's press release? This is absurd, James sputtered. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, she can. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Margaret Bennett, James's mother, stepped into the room. And as a major shareholder in Bennett Pharmaceuticals, I'm very interested in hearing about my son's creative business practices. James actually stumbled. Mother, what are you doing? What I should have done months ago, she cut him off. Stopping you from destroying everything your father and I built. The next hour was a blur of revelations. Every piece of evidence was examined, every lie exposed. James tried several times to defend himself, but each attempt was met with another document, another recording, another witness to his betrayal. Finally, Robert Morgan stood up. I believe we've seen enough. I moved to nullify all transfers and acquisitions made during Ms. Mitchell's incapacity, and to remove James Bennett from any position of authority in Artemis Biotech. The vote was unanimous. You can't do this, James whispered, but there was no force behind it anymore. The company needs to return to its original mission, I said firmly, making life-saving treatments accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford premium prices. Margaret stepped forward. Bennett Pharmaceuticals will be withdrawing all claims to Artemis Biotech, and James, she fixed her son with a steel gaze. The family board would like to speak with you. Immediately. As James was led out, looking shell-shocked and defeated, Sarah approached with more documents. The FDA approval came through this morning. The original protocols, not the modified ones. We can proceed as planned. I looked around the boardroom, at the supporters who had helped me fight back, at the board members who now understood the truth, at the company I had nearly lost but have fought to reclaim. Ms. Mitchell, Robert Morgan approached. The board would like to officially reinstate you as CEO, with full control over company direction, assuming you're well enough. I smiled, thinking of all those hours in the hospital planning this moment. Oh, I'm well enough. We have a lot of work to do. In the weeks that followed, the story of James' attempted takeover became a cautionary tale in business circles. Bennett Pharmaceuticals distanced themselves completely, with Margaret Bennett taking a personal interest in ensuring their company ethics were reformed. James, stripped of his positions in both companies, was last seen booking a flight to some remote destination. The SEC investigation into his activities was just beginning. Artemis Biotech not only survived but thrived. Our treatment received full approval, and under the original pricing structure, it would help thousands who couldn't afford existing options. One afternoon, as I sat in my restored office, Sarah brought in a package that had been found in James's desk. Inside was my original badge, the one declaring me co-founder and CEO. You know what the irony is? She said as I pinned it back on. If he had just waited, if he had stuck to our mission instead of getting greedy, he would have been part of something amazing. Sometimes people can't see past their own ambition, I replied. But that's why we keep records, to remind everyone of the truth. I touched the thumb drive, now mounted in a frame on my wall alongside a news article about our FDA approval. It served as a reminder that sometimes the best defense isn't just being right, it's being able to prove it. Maria stopped by later with a final report. All legal challenges had been dismissed, our patents were secure, and James' attempts to claim any ownership had been permanently blocked. Want to know the best part? She grinned. Every time he tries to start a new venture, potential investors find the records of what he did here. Turns out, trying to steal a company from your partner while she's in a coma is bad for your business reputation. I looked out my office window at the Seattle skyline, thinking of all the patients who would now have access to our treatment. The company wasn't just saved, it was stronger, more focused on its mission than ever. You know, Maria mused, most people would have just fought to get their shares back. But you did more. You exposed the whole scheme, protected the mission, saved the science. Because it was never just about ownership, I replied. It was about doing what's right. And now everyone knows exactly how far some people will go to do what's wrong. That evening, as I prepared to leave, I passed the research lab where James and I had first developed our breakthrough. The lights were on, and through the glass, I could see Sarah and her team working late, dedicated to the mission we'd started years ago. I touched the frame holding the thumb drive one last time. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing a betrayal, it's showing everyone that the truth always finds a way to surface. James had tried to bury me, not realizing that I had planted seeds of truth that would grow into his downfall. He thought my medical crisis was his opportunity, never suspecting that his own words would be his undoing. The company flourished, the treatment helped thousands, and the story of how careful documentation defeated corporate greed became a legend in the biotech world. And every time someone new toured our offices, they would see that framed thumb drive and learn the most important lesson in business. Never betray someone who keeps records of everything, especially when they're fighting to protect something bigger than themselves.